Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. I had been working as the personal secretary to CEO Lucas Bennett for 3 years when he got engaged to a wealthy heiress. Even though I had always maintained strict professional boundaries and had never been personally involved with him, I knew better than to let the future Mrs. Bennett hold a grudge against me. So, being sensible, I decided to resign on my own. But not even 2 minutes after I sent the resignation email, Lucas burst out of his office and stopped right in front of my desk, his tall frame casting a shadow over me. "Miss Hall," he said in a sharp tone, "why do you want to quit? Are you dissatisfied with me, or with the work I've assigned you? Fine then. Name your terms. As long as you stay, I'll agree to anything." Oh, for God's sake. Wasn't that making things worse? How was I supposed to explain this? He stood there exuding that intimidating aura of his, while from the nearby offices, curious coworkers were peeking out, their eyes filled with gossiping excitement. My head felt like it was about to explode. I couldn't think of a single coherent word. Judging by his expression, Lucas had no intention of stopping. He looked ready to keep going endlessly. Panicking, I took a step forward and impulsively covered his mouth. "Mr. Bennett, please stop talking. If you say one more word, I swear my life is over." Under the gaze of our nosy colleagues, Lucas grabbed my wrist and pulled me straight into his office. As soon as the door closed, he leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms and stared at me. "All right, Miss Hall," he said coolly. "Tell me, why exactly do you want to leave me?" Oh my God, the way he said that so cold and serious made it sound like I was some heartless woman abandoning her lover. But come on, I was just an overworked office employee. Did this really have to turn into some tragic melodrama? I swallowed all my frustration and forced a polite professional smile. "You know, Mr. Bennett," I said lightly, "I've always had pretty good luck with money. A few days ago, I bought a scratch-off ticket and won $1 million. I thought I could use that money to open a small shop and try starting my own business. After talking it over with my family, they agreed. So I decided to send you my resignation. Besides, the company isn't that busy right now, so this seemed like a reasonable time to leave. Don't worry. Before I go, I'll make sure all my work is properly handed over. I won't delay anything." It was an explanation I had carefully prepared, clear, logical, and flawless. But after listening, Lucas narrowed his eyes at me, obviously not convinced. Still, I hadn't told a single lie, and when our eyes met, I didn't look away. Several seconds of silence passed before he finally lowered his gaze. The morning sunlight filtered through the wide office windows of Bennett Corporation's New York headquarters, casting half his face into shadow. His long fingers tapped rhythmically against the desk, and when he spoke again, his voice was calm but icy. "You're quitting because of just $1 million, he said slowly. "Miss Hall, I don't pay you that little. You could make that much in 5 or 6 years. You're really willing to throw away long-term benefits for such a small sum after all these years working with me? Is that what you've learned?" He exhaled slightly. "I won't approve your resignation, but since you've worked hard for the past few years, I'll give you 10 days of paid vacation. Take a proper rest, and when you come back, continue your job as usual. Don't mention quitting again." When I finally walked out of his office, I realized both my palms were soaked with sweat. I turned around and saw his tall, composed figure through the glass wall, his profile illuminated by the soft morning light. The bright, sunny expression he usually had was gone, replaced by that stern, cold look, and I honestly couldn't take it. I slumped back into my chair exhausted. Right then, Vivian, the assistant to Vice President Andrew Turner, spun her chair over to my desk. "Emily," she whispered dramatically. "What's going on? Are you really quitting? Why? Mr. Bennett treats you so well. Everyone's jealous of you, you know. And did you see the way he looked just now? It was so obvious he couldn't bear to let you go. Sure, he's engaged, but we're all still total fans of you two as a couple. It's just an engagement, not a wedding yet. Don't give up, Emily. There's still hope." Vivian had only graduated a year ago. She was young, cheerful, and way too straightforward, but she didn't mean any harm. I sighed and replied gently, "Vivian, you've got it all wrong. Mr. Bennett and I don't have the kind of relationship you're imagining. Some things shouldn't be said out loud. You should stop reading so many romance novels and focus on your work." Okay, honestly, I couldn't really blame everyone in the company for misunderstanding my relationship with Lucas. After all, for the past 3 years, I had indeed been the only one working directly under him as his personal secretary. Lucas Bennett, our CEO, was a true Ivy League graduate, polished, brilliant, and practically shining with gold. After returning to the States, he spent 3 years at a high-tech company in Silicon Valley, where he built a stellar reputation for his technical expertise and leadership. Calling him a legend wouldn't be an exaggeration, but he wasn't the typical domineering CEO type you'd see in a drama. He wasn't cold, arrogant, or harsh. His jawline wasn't sharp like a chiseled statue. He had single-lidded eyes, fair skin, and faint dimples that appeared whenever he smiled. His smile was bright as California sunshine, dazzling enough to make people stare. Plenty of women in the company secretly adored him, swooning over his gentle, obedient puppy vibe. But only I knew the truth. That Lucas Bennett was a complete tech addict. A purebred programmer who could barely take care of his own daily life. His tea had to be kept warm. His Americano needed exactly half a cup of ice. Anything greasy gave him stomach pain. He couldn't tie a tie properly and always made me iron his suits. He constantly forgot important documents. Sometimes he even forgot to charge his laptop. Whenever he got together with Vice President Turner and the engineering team for a brainstorming session, they would lose track of time, working through the night as if the world didn't exist. If I didn't bring them food at midnight, I was sure our dear CEO would have collapsed at least 18,000 times by now. I still remembered once asking him with a deadpan face, "Mr. Bennett, you're basically handing your life over to me like this. Are you sure that's a good idea?" He had just smiled, that radiant smile of his, and said, "I'm not giving you my life, Miss Hall. I'm entrusting you with something far more valuable, my absolute trust. You should feel honored." Honored, my ass, I had thought. You're just treating me like your personal housekeeper or nanny. So, yeah, over these 3 years working beside Lucas Bennett, I had basically taken care of everything for him from A to Z. Honestly, saying I was his secretary was an understatement. I was part babysitter, part mother, and part 24-hour assistant, always on call and never complaining. So I could understand why he wasn't ready to let me go. But fortunately, I was someone who knew my place. No matter how good I was at my job, I was still just his secretary. And no matter how kind or gentle Lucas could be, he was still my boss. Between an employee and an employer, there would always be a wall that couldn't be crossed. That night, Lucas had a business dinner to attend, and as usual, I accompanied him. It was another gathering of the city's elite. Same familiar faces, same polished smiles. Some looked sleek and elegant, others flashy and overdone, while a few carried themselves like fish swimming effortlessly through water. And of course, there were always the arrogant ones who acted like no one else in the room mattered. And then there were people like me there to make the class divide even clearer. Lucas was surrounded by several familiar investors, chatting animatedly. I was wearing my 8-centimeter Valentino heels, and my ankle had started to ache, so I quietly stepped back toward a shadowed corner. Just my luck, Mr. Hurst spotted me. Almost 2 years ago, Lucas and I had crossed paths with him once, and ever since then, I'd gone out of my way to stay at least 3 miles away from the man, but apparently he hadn't gotten the hint. He shuffled over with a glass of red wine in hand and said with a greasy smile, "Well, well, Miss Hall, long time no see. Still as beautiful as ever." He swirled his wine and leaned closer, his lecherous eyes scanning me from head to toe. His pudgy face looked like it could squeeze out 18 wrinkles if he so much as grinned. I forced a polite smile. "Good evening, Mr. Hurst." He chuckled, nodded, then glanced over at Lucas, who stood a few steps away before turning back to me. "Still following that kid Bennett around, huh? No offense, but working in those new tech companies isn't exactly stable. Can't compare to us investors. Our money makes more money. You being his secretary doesn't really have a future there. Why don't you come work for me instead?" He lowered his voice conspiratorially. "I heard he's engaged now, right? Think about it. His family in Northbridge is well off, so of course they'd want a marriage alliance. You'll never have a real title with him. But if you come with me, well, I'm divorced. I've got a son and my house could use a woman who knows how to manage finances. You'd live comfortably, never have to wear high heels or attend these late-night parties again. Isn't that right, Miss Hall?" When he finished, he had the nerve to pat my hand, resting on the edge of the table, casually like we were sharing some private joke. The disgust that surged through me was indescribable. I was so furious I almost threw my glass of red wine straight into his wrinkled face. Just then, the low hum of a car engine rolled through the courtyard. A soft early summer breeze brushed past, not strong enough to blow away the filth in Mr. Hurst's eyes, but sharp enough to sting my chest. In the end, I managed to keep my fake smile. "You're right, Mr. Hurst," I said lightly. "Absolutely right." It wasn't flattery. Every word he'd said was a damn ugly truth. When the dinner finally ended, Lucas's driver came to pick him up. As always, he was a gentleman. He had the car take a longer route so he could drop me off first. I pulled a packet of wet wipes from my purse and carefully wiped the hand that Mr. Hurst had touched. Lucas was half asleep beside me, but the sound must have stirred him. Loosening his tie, he murmured in a hoarse voice, "Something happened back there. Did someone bother you? I was busy tonight. Sorry I couldn't keep an eye on you." I gave a polite smile. "No one really, and I don't need you to look after me. If anything, I'm the one who's supposed to take care of you, Mr. Bennet." Mr. Bennet was just a polite habit, words that slipped out naturally. But as soon as I said it, he went silent. The faint citrus of his cologne mixed with the scent of wine and smoke, filling the air between us, heavy but wordless. It stayed that way until the car slowed to a stop. Just as I reached to unbuckle my seatbelt, he finally turned his head and looked at me. His voice was low. "Emily," he said, "you really want to quit? Is it truly because of that $1 million? Or are you just tired of taking care of me? Or is it because you don't want to stay by my side anymore?" His words hung in the dim car, his gaze burning, almost pleading, like he was waiting for an answer I couldn't give. I kept my head down, unfastened the seatbelt, and avoided his eyes. "You've had too much to drink, Mr. Bennet," I said softly. "You should go home and rest. See you tomorrow. Good night." The black Bentley slipped away into the dense night, its taillights fading in the dark. I stood alone in the cool evening wind for a long time, feeling unreasonably sentimental. After all, it really was a good job. High salary, decent benefits, and a boss that anyone else would dream of working for still. The fact that I insisted on quitting really did seem a bit ridiculous. But that bastard Hurst wasn't wrong about one thing. The whole domineering CEO and adorable secretary fantasy was never going to happen in real life. I wasn't that delusional. I'd rather keep playing my role as an ordinary office worker, short-sighted and money-driven, and that was perfectly fine with me. That said, winning that $1 million really had been a stroke of luck. At first, I even planned to take my grandparents on a 2-week trip to Europe just so they could see the world a little. But who would have thought Lucas Bennet could be such a stingy capitalist? He only approved 10 days of paid leave. So Europe had to be replaced with Southeast Asia. When I received the approved leave form from Lucas's hand, he was smiling as brightly as ever. His eyes curved like crescents. "I heard you're heading to Southeast Asia," he said warmly. "A little sunshine will do you good. But make sure you keep your phone on. We still need to stay in touch. Things here can't exactly run without you, you know." The folder in my hands paused midair. When I looked up, his eyes were shining like stars, bright, intense, almost with a hint of something else behind them. Something that could make anyone's heart skip a beat. But I was old enough to know better. I simply smiled politely. No matter how nice his words sounded, he was still a heartless capitalist, my miserly financial boss. And honestly, who goes on vacation with their phone turned on? What a joke. A good employee is one who, the moment she clocks out, might as well be declared dead. As I stepped out of Lucas's office, I ran straight into Sophia Blake, the wealthy heiress who had just gotten engaged to him. Her skin was as pale as porcelain, her long curls flowing perfectly, and she wore the newest season's Chanel dress paired with a post-runway edition handbag. Everything about her radiated luxury and refinement. To be fair, Sophia was the picture of a sweet, elegant white flower kind of woman. Adorable, gentle, and perfectly suited to Lucas's golden boy image. They made a picture-perfect couple. Sophia had 2 main hobbies. The first was clinging to Lucas and calling him Oppa in that sugary voice, and the second was sticking to me, gossiping endlessly about company rumors. Whether she was genuinely innocent or just playing dumb, I could never tell, so I always kept my distance, polite but detached, avoiding her whenever I could. Now she spotted me and beamed, clearly delighted, reaching out as if to grab my hand. I immediately stepped back, smiling with professional courtesy. Miss Blake, I'm a bit busy today. Since I'll be on vacation soon, I still have a lot of handovers to finish. I'm afraid I can't chat right now. Her small mouth formed an O. You're going on vacation? Where to? Europe, Australia, or maybe Malaysia or Singapore? Her eyes sparkled with excitement like she was the one going on the trip instead of me. I was speechless, unsure how to respond. Then, before I could stop her, she rushed straight into Lucas's office. Lucas, let's go on a trip too, she chirped. From where I stood, I saw Lucas glance up from behind his desk. His eyebrows furrowed slightly, then relaxed as he gave her a small smile. Sure, he said casually. Then, intentionally or not, his gaze drifted toward me, standing in the doorway. I did what any sensible person would do. I shut the door behind me and let them have their moment. Why was he looking at me anyway? They were the couple, not me. The next day, I set off for Southeast Asia with my grandparents. The business class seats were wide and comfortable. It was their first time flying in such luxury, and they couldn't stop smiling. I let them enjoy it while I slipped into a seat farther back, put on oversized sunglasses, and prepared to catch up on some serious sleep. The plane took off, then landed. I closed my eyes, then opened them again. That nap left my mind hazy and slow, and somehow Lucas Bennett's face kept flashing in my head, lingering like a restless ghost that refused to fade. To be honest, my 3 years as Lucas Bennett's secretary had been quite a peculiar story in itself. 5 years ago, right after graduating from college, I signed a contract with Bennett Corporation and started as the assistant to the assistant of the previous CEO. Back then I was still naive, untouched by the brutal slap of the real world. I was full of blind enthusiasm. So, even before the company had a chance to overwork me, I was already overworking myself. I came in earlier than anyone else and left later than everyone. I topped the attendance bonus list every month. Naturally, the old CEO's assistant and the old CEO himself were both very pleased with me. Then 2 years later, word spread that the youngest Bennett's son, Lucas, had returned from the Ivy League and was starting his own tech company in the newly developed district. Coincidentally, around that time, the company held its annual year-end raffle. The grand prize, $10,000, went to me. Actually, I'd won the grand prize the year before that, too. And the year before that, what could I say? I'd always been absurdly lucky when it came to money. That day, the old Mr. Bennett rubbed his hands together and laughed like a jolly Buddha. That kid, Lucas, is starting from scratch. What he needs most is a meticulous assistant and maybe a bit of luck. Miss Hall, you're the perfect fit. You've got both. His booming laughter gave me goosebumps all over. And the next day, with a single wave of his hand, he packed me up and sent me straight to his youngest son's startup, as if we were living in some feudal era, and he was a father gifting his son a concubine. It was ridiculous, but admittedly, it made sense in its own twisted way. I'd heard that Mr. Bennett had 2 sons. The elder one was set to inherit the family conglomerate, while the younger Lucas wasn't going to get anything. He had to make his own fortune. So, naturally, I assumed this youngest son would be gloomy, withdrawn, maybe even a total tech nerd with 2000-degree glasses and a closet full of plaid shirts. But the first time I met Lucas Bennett, the morning sun was blazing, and there he was, tall, about 6 feet 1 inch, wearing a light-colored hoodie and simple jeans, laughing as he helped the workers move furniture into the new office. Not a trace of arrogance. He was nothing like the spoiled rich boy I'd pictured. When I approached to introduce myself, his handsome, almost K-pop idol-like face broke into the kind of smile that could make someone faint. "Oh, you're the assistant my father sent," he said brightly. He kept going on about how reliable and serious you were. "I honestly thought you'd be much older. Didn't expect someone this young and pretty. I'll be counting on your guidance, Miss Hall." Then he stretched out his long arms and gave me a light, friendly hug. Polite yet surprisingly warm. There was a faint citrus scent on him, clean and sunny. Even now, every time I think back to that day, I still wonder what exactly went through my head. Probably something like, "Wow, his cologne smells really good." Or maybe, "Damn, he actually looks pretty good. Probably even has abs under that hoodie." And most likely, this new boss might be dangerously attractive. Time slipped by quickly, and before I knew it, It was already the third day of our trip to Southeast Asia. I'd rented a private car to take my mom and grandma sightseeing everywhere. They were cheerful and chatty the whole time, their laughter echoing through every stop. As for me, I spent my days lazing in the hotel. Eat, nap, wake up, eat again. Honestly, it was heaven. Of course, I wasn't stupid enough to update Lucas on my travel schedule. I'd already blocked him, but just to avoid seeming completely cold-hearted, I kept my phone on, always on Do Not Disturb mode. That afternoon when I opened WeChat, I saw Vivian's new status. So tired I could die. Her location tag showed she was less than 2 kilometers from where I was staying. And that's when it hit me. I completely forgotten. This week, Lucas and Andrew Turner, our vice president, were in Southeast Asia too for a business meeting about the hotel project. And the hotel they were staying at, the one I had booked for them myself, really was true. They were staying less than 2 kilometers away from me. Careless. So careless. I immediately turned off my phone. But even then I didn't feel safe. So for good measure I pulled out the SIM card too. Only then did I finally feel at peace. That night, my grandma wanted to visit the night market and eat seafood. By the time we got back to the hotel, it was already late. I flopped down on the bed, rubbing my overstuffed stomach, completely forgetting about the afternoon's discovery. So when I finally turned my phone back on, the first thing that popped up was a frantic call from Vivian. Her voice was trembling. She sounded like she'd been crying for hours. "Emily, you finally picked up. Oh my God, please help me. I think I just killed Mr. Bennett." My heart stopped, but my body moved on instinct. I changed clothes and bolted out the door before my brain could catch up. My grandma came out of the bathroom, face covered in a mask, and blinked at me. "Where on earth are you going this late?" My mind was blank. "Maybe to a funeral," I blurted before slamming the door behind me. She was still standing there, mouth wide open, probably wondering if I'd lost my mind. When I arrived at the hospital, I saw Vivian sitting on a bench, wiping her tears, while Andrew Turner, the vice president, stood beside her, tall, broad-shouldered, with a faint smell of alcohol and an expression that was equal parts amused and exasperated. The moment Vivian saw me, she rushed forward, sobbing. "Emily, I swear I didn't know Mr. Bennett was allergic to mangoes. At dinner there was a fruit platter and he just ate it without even looking, and then he collapsed right after. But it's really not my fault. I swear." I sighed and sat down beside her, patting her shoulder to comfort her. Poor girl. Traveling for work alone with 2 big bosses. Mistakes like that were bound to happen. Besides, I'd gone on leave so suddenly and left Lucas in her care. It really wasn't fair to her. I was still wiping away her tears when Andrew suddenly spoke up. "Emily, I heard you're planning to quit." I smiled faintly. "No, I'm just on vacation. I'll be back next week." "Oh, good," he said, nodding with drunken relief. Because earlier when Lucas's face puffed up like a wild boar, I nearly lost it. I've known that guy for years and I've never seen him look like that. I'm telling you, if he ever lost you, that'd be the end of him. He said it in his usual slur, drawn-out way, the kind where every sentence ended in a lazy H. He could barely stand straight, so I didn't even bother replying. Instead, I changed the subject. "How's Mr. Bennett? Now it's not serious, right?" Andrew tilted his chin toward the upper floor. "He's up there getting 4 fluids. Go check on him. He might still look like a balloon." His tone made it clear he wanted me to go laugh at Lucas's misery. Well, who was I to refuse an invitation like that? I left Vivian downstairs and went upstairs to check on him. The hospital room was quiet, empty except for Lucas. His white shirt and dress pants were wrinkled, his gray tie hanging loosely around his neck. He looked disheveled, yet somehow still annoyingly attractive. That tie, I realized, was the Christmas gift I'd given him last year. He was leaning back in the chair, head tilted slightly to the side, his bangs falling softly across his forehead, looking uncharacteristically gentle. When I got closer, I saw that the swelling on his face had mostly gone down, just a faint redness around his mouth. Now honestly, it was kind of cute. I couldn't help letting out a small sigh of relief. Lucas must have heard me because he stirred and opened his eyes, looking straight at me. "Emily, what are you doing here this late?" He sounded half surprised, half pleased. "Vivian found out you were in Southeast Asia too. She was worried sick and kept insisting on calling you. I couldn't stop her." "Sorry. Guess we ruined your family vacation. Huh? He tilted his head slightly as he spoke, his words polite, but the little smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth betrayed him. I clenched my teeth. Mr. Bennet, it's just the two of us here. You can drop the act. You ate that mango on purpose, didn't you? You knew I was here, and you still risked your life just to drag me over. My voice shook with a mix of anger and worry. You scared everyone half to death. What the hell do you want, Lucas? All the tension and confusion I'd been holding in finally burst out. I must have looked terrible at that moment, but Lucas just stared at me with those wide, innocent eyes of his, blinking like nothing had happened. The four-room was dim, lit only by a soft fluorescent light that cast faint shadows across his face. Under that gentle glow, his harmless-looking smile suddenly seemed anything but harmless. What do I want? He said quietly. I just wanted to see you. Somewhere deep in my memory something stirred. Something from when I was maybe 6 years old. Back then, my grandma once took me out of the city to a small mountain temple to burn incense. As soon as we entered the temple gates, we met an old Taoist priest with white hair and beard, looking completely shabby and unkempt. He stared at me for a few seconds, stroked his beard, and muttered some ancient mantra or whatever it was. I can't remember his exact words anymore, but roughly he said I was destined to have a miserable love life. That I was born without peach blossom fate, meaning I'd never find my destined partner. Not in this lifetime. My grandma nearly fainted when she heard that I was her one and only beloved granddaughter. How could she rest in peace knowing I'd never get married? So of course she immediately stuffed 500 yuan into the priest's hands, begging him to perform a ritual to reverse fate. The old priest took the money and agreed, and he did come to our house a few times afterward to perform ceremonies. But in the end he still shook his head and said, her fate truly lacks romantic destiny. Even if she wishes for love, it won't come. Instead, he told us that he had invited the god of wealth to bless me. From then on, I'd have extraordinary luck in money. Very, very extraordinary. My grandma wasn't thrilled about the trade-off, but she was still grateful enough to hand the priest a few big red envelopes. My mom just scoffed and said grandma was being superstitious. But the weird thing was, it actually started happening. From then on, my incredible luck kicked in. At the convenience store, whenever I grabbed a random bottle of soda, I'd win another one for free. At supermarket raffles, while others won tissue packs, I won 500 yuan vouchers. When my family bought a new car, my dad spun the prize wheel 3 times and got nothing. But the 4th time when he took me along, we hit the jackpot. Of course, fate always balances things out. Since I'd been blessed with absurd financial luck, it only made sense that I'd have zero luck in love. When I was in elementary school, I had a crush on the cute boy next door. I gave him 2 lollipops and the next week his whole family moved overseas. In middle school, I liked the smartest, most handsome boy in class. 2 days after I started noticing him, he transferred schools. By college, I thought maybe my luck was finally changing. A guy actually gave me a love letter, my very first one. I thought maybe my springtime had arrived at last. But a few days later, I found out it wasn't exactly special. The letter had been mass-printed and sent to every girl in our department. He was just waiting for some naive idiot to fall for it. I almost became that idiot. After that, I gave up completely. Maybe I really was fated to have no romance in my life. And honestly, it didn't bother me much. I'd never met anyone worth losing my mind or my peace for. So, I just decided to give up on love altogether. Men couldn't bring me fortune. Scholarships could. Why chase romance when I could chase academic awards? So, I shut out the world and focused on my studies, earning one scholarship after another. 4 years later, my streak of ridiculous good luck continued. I landed a job offer from Bennet Corporation during their recruitment drive. My grades got me through the screening easily, and after 2 years of working hard there, I got handpicked by the old Mr. Bennet himself to transfer over and assist his youngest son, Lucas Bennet. 3 years working under Lucas, we'd faced countless challenges together, weathered every storm, and through it all I'd stayed in my lane just as secretary. I made sure every part of his daily life ran smoothly, and every project was handled flawlessly. I was loyal, diligent, and professional to the end, never once crossing the line. Back when the company had just been established, there was a time we couldn't secure a sponsor. We had no choice but to turn to that sleazy investor, Mr. Hearst. He was one of those newly rich types who had just started making waves in Northbridge City. At that point, he probably only knew that the Bennett Corporation would eventually be inherited by the elder brother. So, since Lucas was the younger son who had to build his own path, Mr. Hearst didn't bother showing him any respect. That day, Lucas took me along to meet him. Mr. Hearst was in his office playing poker with two young pretty secretaries. The three of them were laughing and chatting away, looking exactly like a caricature of old-world wealth and sleaze. After hearing why we were there, Mr. Hearst leaned back in his chair, waved two king cards in his hand and smirked. "Oh, you want me to invest? Not impossible," he said lazily. "Tell you what, Lucas. Come over here and play around with me. If you win, I'll write the check right now. But if you lose, you'll have to pour me a cup of tea like a good boy. Who knows? Maybe I'll still invest in you afterward." Huh. This man's face was thicker than a runway. He clearly wanted to invest in our project, but couldn't resist the urge to show off first. Lucas, though, had just returned from overseas, straightforward, honest, and totally unaccustomed to this kind of shameless arrogance. I could see the anger rising in his ears, the tips turning red. He was seconds away from snapping. So naturally I stepped in. The classic beauty saves the hero moment. After all, I, Emily Hall, had been trained in negotiation since childhood. I exchanged a few polite pleasantries with Mr. Hearst, then firmly rejected his card game challenge. Instead, I suggested something simple and quick. High card draw. He looked me up and down, grinned and agreed. I looked right back at him, then won 3 rounds in a row. Mr. Hearst froze, his smile gone stiff. Still, he had no choice but to pull out his checkbook and begrudgingly write the investment sum. Honestly, I hadn't expected it to go that smoothly. When Lucas and I left his office, I was still in mild shock. Lucas, however, just stared at me the entire time, then suddenly said, "All these years later, your luck's still as good as ever." At the time, I didn't really understand what he meant. It was only later, after he mentioned it again and again, that I started to remember. It seemed that we actually had met once before, about 8 years earlier. Back then, I was a high school senior and he was a sophomore. The Bennett family had 2 sons. Their parents had placed all their hopes on the eldest, grooming him to inherit the corporation. As for the youngest, Lucas, they basically let him run wild. No one praised him when he did well, and no one scolded him when he didn't. Whether he topped the class or failed completely, nobody cared. So unsurprisingly, he grew up feeling unwanted. Whenever he felt down, he'd go to the arcade on the top floor of the Northbridge Plaza to blow off steam. And on one sunny day, that was where he met me. I vaguely remember that day. I had just finished a mock exam, didn't do well, and decided to stop by the arcade to cheer myself up. I played the claw machine, and by some miracle I won 4 or 5 plush toys in a row. That tiny success made me feel a bit better. What I didn't realize was that my divine-level claw machine skills had caught someone's attention. Lucas, then a lanky 15-year-old in an international school uniform, had been standing nearby. I only heard a quiet voice behind me say, "Wow, you're really lucky. I'm so jealous." I turned around and saw him. A bright-eyed teenage boy wearing limited edition Air Jordans, the kind that screamed rich kid. I couldn't figure out what he had to be jealous about, but he looked so genuinely glum that I handed him one of the stuffed animals I just won. And for some reason my brain short-circuited, and I blurted out something ridiculously idealistic, the kind of thing you'd hear from a self-help book. "This world is fair," I told him. "Don't envy what others have. Anything I have that you don't probably means I've lost something you still get to keep. My grandma always says if you know when to be content, you'll always be happy. So if things don't go your way, believe that maybe it's all part of the best possible plan." After that, I completely forgot about the encounter as if it had never happened. What I didn't expect was that the boy who received that plush toy would remember me for 8 whole years. "I don't really remember your face anymore," he once admitted later, smiling. "Just that you were small with round eyes and a calm voice that made people believe you." After that day, I went back to that arcade so many times, but I never saw you again. Still, what you said that day, it stuck with me. For the first time, I stopped feeling sorry for myself. He paused, then, his eyes distant. "I'd always envy because my brother always got more love and attention than I did," Lucas said softly. "I used to envy him, but now I realize I actually have something he never will." He smiled faintly, eyes lowered. His future was decided for him from birth. Every step of his life follows our parents' plans. But me? I get to choose my own path. I studied what I wanted, lived where I loved, and now I'm doing the job I chose. And most importantly, I got to meet you again. He looked up at me, his voice gentle but steady. You were right. Everything that's happened in my life has been part of the best arrangement. We were standing by the grand fountain outside the office building, facing each other in silence. Lucas lowered his head slightly, his eyes curved, shimmering like starlight, like he had finally found the treasure he'd been searching for all these years. The water in the fountain rose high, then fell in shimmering streams, scattering 1,000 droplets of light. For a moment, watching him, I felt something in my chest sink. Maybe the man standing in front of me was also a gift from the universe. One so beautiful it could only be looked at, never possessed. If you know when to be content, you'll always be happy. Easy to say, hard to live by. After that day, nothing between us changed on the surface. We remained boss and secretary as usual. But I could feel it, the subtle shift in the air. Whenever he looked at me, he started caring a little more. My salary increased. My allowances increased. Whenever the company received luxury cosmetics from partners or shopping vouchers from malls, he didn't even glance at them before handing them all to me. I tried to refuse, but he'd just smile warmly. I know you don't care about these things, he'd say. Just take them as my payment for borrowing some of your good luck. I'll still need your help with a lot of things later. After all, sometimes when we went to social events, other secretaries had to pour drinks and laugh at every joke, flirting and schmoozing like they were flowers in full bloom. But not me. Lucas would always push me to the back, out of the spotlight. He liked to tease. My secretary can do anything except hold her liquor. If anyone needs to drink tonight, I'll do it. Don't bully her too much or she might get mad and quit. Then you'll all have to deal with the fallout yourselves. Words said over drinks usually carried no weight. But after hearing it enough times, people started believing it. Gradually, within the business circle, everyone quietly acknowledged that I, Emily Hall, was Lucas Bennett's personal secretary and his alone. I knew he was trying to protect me. I was grateful for that. But because of it, something dangerous started to grow inside me. Something I couldn't control. 3 years, over 1,000 days of working side by side. Somewhere along the way, I had quietly let him slip into my heart. Quietly pretended nothing had changed. I thought I hid it well until about a month ago when Lucas suddenly brought Sophia Blake into the company and publicly announced that their families were forming an alliance through marriage. That moment, under everyone's sympathetic gazes, I finally realized the most pitiful person had always been me. That night after work, I didn't know what came over me. I stopped by a small convenience store, bought a random scratch-off ticket, and won $1 million. I laughed soundlessly, my chest tight. It felt like the universe was reminding me, Emily Hall, I've given you more than enough. And yet, you still don't know when to stop. People can't have everything. You want too much and you'll lose what truly matters. Take this money, the universe seemed to whisper, and walk away from the man you should never have fallen for. Lucas Bennett is not yours. And this is the best gift I can give you. Yes. Whether it was superstition or coincidence, reality or fate, the truth was the same. Between Lucas Bennett and me, there could never be a happy ending. So I decided to let go. To free him was to free myself. I didn't know where my grandma had gone that day, but by dinner time she finally returned, beaming with joy. She sat down at the table, her face glowing as she hummed under her breath. Just as my grandmother sat down, I got a call from Lucas. He said he was taking Sophia Blake out on a deep-sea fishing trip the next day. And since I was in the same area, he wanted to invite me along. I wanted to refuse him about 10,000 times over, but my stupid, well-trained body responded before my brain could catch up. I automatically grabbed my notepad and said, "Yes, Mr. Bennett. What time will we be leaving tomorrow? Any specific requirements?" "Yes, of course. Don't worry. I'll take care of all the arrangements." See, I really was born to be an obedient corporate dog. After hanging up, I couldn't stop wondering why on earth they would invite me to a date. Later, I realized when a prince and his fiancée go out to play, of course, they need a beautiful little maid to tag along. And that maid was me. But the next morning when I boarded the fishing boat, I was surprised to see Andrew Turner, our vice president, already there. It didn't make sense. Honestly, he looked like he didn't even know why he was there himself. I stood with him near the back of the boat, fishing rods in hand, while he yawned and muttered, "I was sleeping just fine, and that idiot Bennett barges in, drags me out of bed without a word, babbling about how nervous he is because it's his first time taking a girl fishing. Nervous, my ass." I followed his gaze toward the front of the boat. Lucas and Sophia were standing close together, whispering about something with their heads nearly touching. Both Andrew and I looked away at the same time, silently reeling in our lines. Andrew and Lucas had been classmates in the US, both from rich families. I'd heard Andrew had a falling out with his parents after returning to America, ran away from home, and later went into business with Lucas. Unlike Lucas's polished movie star looks, Andrew was the rugged type. Tan skin, athletic build, broad shoulders. Both were undeniably straight. But when Lucas announced his engagement, most of the single women at our company gave up on him and started openly fawning over Andrew instead. After hearing Andrew's drunken rant about Lucas today, I couldn't help feeling a strange sense of camaraderie with him and admittedly a touch of annoyance toward the lovey-dovey pair at the bow of the boat. So I stayed put and didn't go anywhere near them. I quietly followed Andrew's lead instead, watching as he expertly reeled in fish after fish, grinning ear to ear like a kid at a carnival. I wasn't sure if he was genuinely that good at fishing. But before long, Sophia couldn't resist coming over to the stern, begging Andrew to help her catch 2 fish. Naturally, Lucas followed right behind her, hands tucked in his pockets. Seeing that, I politely shifted to the side, keeping a safe distance. He stepped closer. I stepped back. After a few rounds of that silent dance, somehow we'd both drifted back to the front of the boat, leaving Sophia and Andrew behind us. I was just thinking how awkward this new arrangement was when Lucas suddenly reached out and grabbed my arm. His palm was warm against my skin, his voice low and teasing near my ear. "Emily Hall," he murmured with a chuckle. "How much longer are you going to keep running from me?" I forced a polite smile. "Mr. Bennett, we shouldn't stand so close. Our lines will get tangled." As I spoke, I started to move away again. But before I could, he dropped his fishing rod entirely and tightened his grip on me. "I'm not talking about fishing," he said quietly. "I'm talking about why you're quitting. Why do you keep avoiding me?" I blinked up at him, feigning innocence. "I already told you. I won $1 million. I just want to retire and live like a salted fish. Besides, if there's something you'd like to discuss, we can talk calmly. Right? No need for physical persuasion." I glanced over his shoulder toward the back of the boat, where Sophia and Andrew were still busy untangling lines, and quickly pried his hand off. He looked a little displeased but finally let go. Then he said, "Your grandmother told me everything yesterday. You're keeping your distance because of that fortune teller when you were little, right? Because he said you'd never have any romance in your life, so you've been pretending, acting like you don't notice me. Isn't that it, Emily Hall?" He arched an eyebrow, smirking faintly. "I just can't believe a top employee at a cutting-edge tech company is actually that superstitious." I nearly threw my fishing rod into the ocean. Seriously, my grandmother, how could she possibly have told him that story? I forced an awkward laugh. "Mr. Bennett, what on earth are you talking about?" "I don't understand what you're talking about," I said. Lucas let out a low, teasing laugh. "Don't play dumb, Emily." His eyes gleamed, half amusement, half challenge. "I just want to know one thing. What your grandmother said. Was it true? Do you really like me?" That was the moment I actually threw my fishing rod overboard. "Mr. Bennett, are you insane?" I stammered, pointing toward the back of the boat. "Your fiancé is right there." He didn't flinch. In fact, he looked more determined than ever. "So you're not denying it? That means it's true, right?" He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "And don't worry about Sophia. She's not my fiancé. I made that up." I blinked. "What?" "The engagement between the Bennett and Blake families. It's my brother and Sophia's cousin." His lips curved slightly, a small, knowing smile forming. "And as for Sophia herself, haven't you noticed? The person she likes is someone missing a few brain cells like you." He jerked his chin toward the back of the boat where Andrew Turner was still fishing happily. "Can someone please hand me another fishing rod so I can throw that too?" The sun was bright, the sea breeze gentle, And there we were, Lucas and I, standing at the bow, staring at each other like two idiots. The amount of information he just dropped on me was overwhelming, and my brain hadn't caught up yet. Just then, Andrew came jogging over from the stern, breaking the tense silence. "Emily," he called out cheerfully, "I just realized something. When you were sitting next to me, I caught fish. The second you left, nothing. Come on, come back over here. You're my lucky charm." Without waiting for my answer, he grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the back, shooting Lucas a sharp glare on the way. "Your wife's too naive," he said flatly. "You should train her yourself." "I'm done trying." Before I could react, Lucas was still standing at the front of the boat with Sophia beside him while I was being dragged away by Andrew. For once, I was actually grateful to the heavens. "Thank you, universe," I thought. "Truly thank you." Sophia eventually wandered back toward the bow, wiping at her eyes, looking hurt. Lucas bent slightly to comfort her, but every now and then, I could feel his sharp gaze cutting toward us, cold and dangerous, like he was ready to skin Andrew alive. Andrew, on the other hand, was humming and whistling as he cast his line back into the water, completely unfazed. And me, I sat quietly beside him, pretending like absolutely nothing had happened. Honestly, I couldn't even blame anyone. Every time Sophia visited the company to gossip, 8 out of 10 of her stories were about Andrew, not Lucas. It was obvious she'd been into him for a while, but somehow I'd been too dense to notice. I guess spending too much time around these emotionally stunted tech guys had dragged my own EQ down to sea level. The sunlight that day in Southeast Asia was blindingly bright. The ocean breeze carried a mix of salt and sweetness, and for some reason my heart started racing. My head felt light, dizzy. That evening there was a finance conference at the Longshore Hotel. Vivian was still bedridden from the stress of the previous incident. So once again, the honor of playing secretary fell to me. The beloved child of fate. That's me. Even when I'm on vacation, life insists on keeping me busy. When I returned to the hotel to change, my grandmother was sitting comfortably in the air-conditioned room, sipping tea. "Grandma," I burst out, unable to contain myself. "What exactly did Lucas tell you yesterday that made you sell me out so fast? Are you really my grandmother? Or did you pick me up off the street?" She was sitting cross-legged beside the tea table, calm as ever, exhaling a lazy sigh. "Oh hush, you're such a dramatic child," she said, waving me off. "For years I've arranged so many blind dates for you, and you've ruined every single one. I knew it. You've been hung up on what that old scammer of a priest said. That nonsense about you being unlucky in love." She sipped her tea again, her tone growing sharper. "Well, I believed it once too. But after talking to Lucas yesterday, I realized we were both fooled. That old man must have seen you were born with a money magnet's fate and took advantage of it. He pretended to invite the god of wealth to bless you and conned me out of who knows how much money for his silly incense rituals. And that part about you having no romantic destiny? Total nonsense." She pointed at me with her fan, eyes glinting. "You were just a little girl back then. Who knows what'll happen later in life," Grandma said, waving her hand dismissively. "But one thing's for sure, that priest was a fraud. Nothing he said was true. And you don't think I haven't noticed? You've been talking about your Mr. Bennett nonstop for years now. I knew it ages ago. You've got feelings for him. You just won't admit it because he's rich and you think you're not good enough. Rubbish." She set her teacup down and gave me a proud, almost fierce look. "My precious granddaughter is wonderful, smart, capable, and blessed with good fortune. Whoever marries you will have luck for 8 generations. If anyone dares to look down on you, I'll personally set them straight. And between us," she added with a sly grin, "Lucas seems like a good man, polite, respectful to elders, and most importantly handsome. Just look at your parents," she went on. "They're happily married. What do you plan to spend the rest of your life with your old grandma instead?" She leaned closer, wagging her finger at me. "So, Emily, stop pretending to be all high and mighty. Just say yes already. I've even got your dowry prepared. Once we're back in Northbridge, you can pick any date you like for the wedding." Listening to her ramble on, I sat frozen for a long time, unsure how to even process it all. It felt like the heavy clouds hanging over me for the past 15 years suddenly cleared. My chest felt light, warm, almost unbearably soft. My nose stung. I took a few steps forward and threw my arms around her. Grandma, I'm not getting married. I just want to stay with you forever. She immediately pushed me away. Oh no, don't you dare. I'm not staying with you. I'm in my 70s, not dead. I plan to find myself a charming old gentleman to live with. You think everyone's as hopelessly loveless as you? Now go, go, go. Go handle your own business and stop hovering around me. You're giving me a headache. Yep, 100% my grandmother. No doubt about it. That evening, Lucas sent his driver to pick me up. When the car door opened, I didn't see Lucas inside. Only Sophia Blake smiling brightly at me. Emily, she said cheerfully. Lucas told me everything. He confessed to you, didn't he? My brain froze. Lucas and I grew up together. Yet, she continued quickly, I've always seen him as a brother. Honestly, there's never been anything romantic between us. And you shouldn't let his handsome face fool you. His EQ is so low. He's like the textbook definition of a dense straight guy. He's been in love with you for ages but too scared to say anything. He thought you didn't like him back, so he chickened out. That's why I came up with a plan for him to fake the engagement to get your attention. Sorry, Emily. Please don't be mad. Before I could respond, she squeezed my hand and kept babbling in one breath. But look, I helped you two get together, so when I start chasing Andrew Turner, you have to help me, okay? She kept chattering the entire car ride, holding my hand like we were old friends. I just nodded and mumbled, sure. Right at the right intervals, too stunned to say anything else. Honestly, I started to wonder if all the romance novels I'd read were counterfeit. The CEOs I'd read about were supposed to be cold, domineering jerks, but Lucas Bennett? Not even close. The heiresses were supposed to be cruel and manipulative. But Sophia was basically a golden retriever in human form. Was this what high society drama looked like in real life? Because I was clearly the only ridiculous character left in this story. After Sophia dropped me off at the conference hall, she immediately ran off to find Andrew. I turned around in the crowd, scanning for Lucas. But before I could spot him, my stomach dropped. There he was, Mr. Hurst, the sleazy investor from before. He was wearing an immaculate white suit that only made his shiny bald head gleam brighter under the lights. I couldn't help thinking, this industry really does have low standards if people like him are still around. Well, well, Miss Hall, what a coincidence seeing you here again, he said, grinning wide enough to flash his yellow teeth. You've tanned a little, haven't you? Fair skin suits a girl better, you know. Anyway, have you given any more thought to what I said last time? You really should leave that boy, Bennett, and come work for me. You'd live like a queen. He smirked and leaned closer, his tone slimy. My fists clenched at my sides, but I forced a polite, professional smile. Mr. Hurst, I think you're mistaken. Before I could finish, a familiar voice cut through the noise, low and cold. Mr. Hurst, what exactly are you discussing with my secretary? Lucas's tone was dangerously calm. Mind if I join the conversation? The lights by the outdoor pool shimmered softly across the water. Lucas walked toward me in a dark tailored suit, tall and straight, every step steady and commanding. He reached out his hand as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I instinctively slipped my arm through his and walked beside him. Mr. Hurst's smirk instantly vanished. He went completely silent. Lucas, however, just smiled pleasantly, his voice calm and polite. Mr. Hurst, you seem to have taken quite an interest in my secretary. Why is that? Because she's kind and beautiful? Or because you realize she cleaned you out at the casino before Lunar New Year? His tone was still gentle, almost conversational. I heard you lost quite a bit that night, trying to recruit her to help you win it back, perhaps. Lucas paused, then smiled wider. Oh, and I also heard your first wife is fighting you for custody, while your mistress has been sneaking around with some rich kid. Sounds like a mess already. You must be so busy keeping your family in order, and yet you still find time to harass my secretary. Mr. Hurst, you truly have a heart broader than the ocean and a face thicker than an airport runway. Every word hit perfectly, sharp, poised, deliberate. Everything I'd wanted to say, he said for me, effortlessly fixing every wrong. Yes, that was Lucas Bennett. The events program soon resumed, and the evening carried on smoothly. By the time it ended, I finally managed to breathe again, and when he turned to me, I could only whisper the words that had been on my tongue for days. All right, I said softly. I'll say yes. The following Monday, after the conference, Lucas and Andrew flew back to Northbridge with a few others from the team. Work, after all, always came first for him. I, on the other hand, stayed behind in Southeast Asia, letting my remaining vacation days drift by in a daze, half dream, half disbelief. Grandma, of course, was getting impatient. Every day she followed me around the resort, pressing for updates on how things were going between me and Lucas, but honestly, there wasn't much to report. I still couldn't quite believe I'd somehow ended up as the female lead in my own love story. Then on the very last day of my trip, Lucas sent me a link to a simple little mobile game he'd made. It was a claw machine simulator just like those arcade games, but instead of plush toys there were colorful digital balls. The gameplay was similar to the old gold mining game. Every time I dropped the hook, I'd catch one ball, and when it opened a message would appear inside. Each one was a short note, some just a few words, others a paragraph. Random thoughts Lucas had written down over the years. Every single one was about me. The first year the company was founded, my brother said he'd assign me an assistant. I assumed it'd be some old stone-faced man. Who would have guessed it'd be such a beautiful woman? But why does she seem so familiar? Strange. My brother really does have good taste. This secretary, Emily Hall, is perfect. Soft-spoken but efficient, gentle but precise. Every day she organizes my work with flawless attention to detail. Finally figured out why she looked familiar. She's the same girl who once destroyed the claw machine game in college. My claw queen. Emily Hall, the woman who defies probability itself. Ever since she started working for me, traffic jams clear up when I'm driving. Flights never get delayed. My back doesn't ache. My knees don't hurt. I barely catch colds. And somehow life just feels smoother. It's like bringing home a living good luck charm. Told Mom about Emily tonight. She wasn't surprised. She said it's not luck. Emily is just careful, thoughtful, and always looking after people. I guess that's what makes her special. Then again, Mom used to be my brother's secretary too. At tonight's dinner, someone joked that Emily is only so diligent because she wants to climb the corporate ladder. She just smiled and brushed it off. Didn't even seem bothered. For some reason, that actually annoyed me. Why doesn't she care what people think of us? Why doesn't she care what I think? I ordered her the same designer dress line as mine for the gala. She looked stunning. Absolutely breathtaking. Recently I gave her a raise and a bonus too, but she only thanked me politely. No excitement, no warmth, nothing. Why does that bother me so much? Lately I keep catching myself watching her. Something's definitely wrong with me. Andrew said he wants to borrow my secretary for a few days to help out with a client proposal. Fine, I said yes. Wait, did I really just say yes? What the hell am I thinking? Emily is mine. Why should I lend her out? Lucas's words appeared on the next glowing bubble. Since Sophia likes Andrew, we decided to work together. I'd help her pursue him, and in return she'd pretend to be my fiancé to test how Emily really felt. But after Sophia spent a few days acting as my spy, she didn't find out anything about me. She just kept talking about Andrew instead. What a useless teammate. Emily wants to quit. Why did I do something wrong? Why would my secretary, my Emily, want to leave me? Does she really not like me at all? Day 1 of her vacation. I miss her. Day 3, I want to fly out and see her. Today her grandmother told me she likes me. Haha. I'm going to confess. I wonder if she'll say yes. I'm about to send her this little game. Will she like it? When she comes back from her break, I want to invite her to dinner at my place. Will she come? Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the ocean stretched endlessly blue. The waves rolled in soft and rhythmic, whispering against the shore. When I finished playing the minigame, all the colorful balls were gone. The phone screen lit up and dimmed again and again. But inside my chest, something warm had started to bloom. Slowly, gently, until it filled me completely. I couldn't help smiling. This trip had been truly worth it. Maybe all of us office workers trapped year-round in the gray of the city really do need to bask in the sun now and then. You never know what kind of miracle the sunlight might bring. So in the end, with trembling fingers, I opened my Messenger app and typed a single word back to him. Okay. After working for the Bennett Corporation for 5 years, I'd met Mr. and Mrs. Bennett several times. They'd always treated me kindly and warmly. But now I wasn't just their son's secretary anymore. I was about to become their future daughter-in-law. I had no idea what they'd think of that. Would they be angry? Would they throw me out of the house? The day of the family dinner came sooner than I expected. As soon as the car stopped in front of the Bennett family villa, my legs felt like jelly. Lucas didn't say a word. He just walked up beside me, took my hand and laced our fingers together. His palm was warm, steady. "Don't worry," he said softly. "My parents already adore you." Before I could even pull my hand back, Mr. Bennett appeared in the doorway, walking out from the foyer, holding a pair of garden shears. His sharp eyes flicked down to our joined hands, then back up again. He didn't say a word, just paused, nodded slightly and said, "Lucas, take Emily inside. Your mother asked me to cut some green onions from the garden." He gave the shears a little wave before turning away toward the backyard. Lucas winked at me, then gently tugged my hand as we stepped into the house, but we only made it a few steps before Mrs. Bennett appeared, holding a small wicker basket. Lucas took it from her and immediately ran off after his father, calling, "I'll help." I couldn't help it. I laughed quietly. So this was what a CEO's family looked like. Not cold or distant, not full of rigid manners and drama, but warm, real human. Mrs. Bennett smiled and took my hand, leading me toward the kitchen. She was a graceful woman, full-figured and elegant, her skin glowing with a kind of warmth that made everyone feel at ease. Her cheerful energy was infectious. I'd heard she loved to cook, and one look around the kitchen proved it. The air was rich with the scent of braised pork and spices. The house staff was bustling about preparing dinner. Felt cozy, comforting even. "It must have been tough working as Lucas's assistant all these years," she said kindly as she stirred a pot. "Back before I married his father, I worked as his secretary too. It's not an easy job. You have to be as organized as a housekeeper and as patient as a saint." She chuckled softly. "But you've done so well, Emily. You've taken such good care of my son. I should be the one thanking you." Her tone was so genuine, so warm that all my worries melted away. I quickly tried to sound modest, but she just patted my hand and smiled even wider. "I've known for a long time that Lucas liked you," she said gently, "so there's no need to be shy around me anymore." Mrs. Bennett smiled warmly at me. "But our family isn't like those cold, snobbish clans you see in old movies, and I'm definitely not the kind of evil mother-in-law from TV dramas either. You're capable, kind, and most importantly, the woman Lucas loves. How could his father and I not like you?" She stirred the soup gently and went on. "He even told me to make sure I compliment you a lot or you'd start thinking you're not good enough for him, silly boy." She turned to me and smiled, her eyes soft. "Emily, you're wonderful. I'm truly happy to have you in our family." While keeping an eye on the simmering pot, she chatted with me about all sorts of things. Her cooking, the early days of the company, how Lucas was as a child. Her voice was so natural and kind that I finally relaxed completely. And it was in that moment that I realized something. Lucas's way of loving someone was terrifyingly thoughtful. He'd used my grandmother's words to quietly erase the superstition that haunted my childhood, that nonsense about me being unlucky in love. Then he'd used his mother's words to dissolve the wall of class difference I'd always feared, letting me know that the Bennett family never saw me as less than. And through the little claw machine game he made, through every recorded thought, he told me our relationship was never one-sided or tragic. It had always been a gentle, steady love that grew over time. Between us there was never inequality, only balance. We matched each other perfectly. Every doubt, every insecurity that had clung to my heart for years, Lucas had quietly, patiently untied them one by one. Only after that did our story finally start to flow the way it was meant to, and all that was left for me to do was say one simple word, yes. At first, I thought tonight would just be a quiet family dinner. But as soon as we arrived, I realized it was a full-on Bennett family gathering. Lucas's older brother was there too, with his fiancée and their parents. The two of them stayed close together all evening, hands intertwined, clearly very much in love. Not the kind of cold, arranged marriage I'd once imagined. Safia Blake came in behind them, still as radiant and cheerful as ever. Not long after that, Andrew Turner arrived carrying an armful of fruit baskets and expensive gift boxes. "Good evening, Mrs. Bennett," he greeted politely. Sophia's mother, who everyone now called Mrs. Blake, rushed over to help him, her smile so bright it could have lit up the garden. But Andrew instinctively took 2 steps back, looking visibly awkward. Clearly, he still hadn't adjusted to the idea that Lucas's former fiancée had once secretly liked him. Lucas leaned over, hand covering his mouth to stifle a laugh. You see that? Andrew's even denser than I am. I honestly don't understand what Sophia sees in him. I smirked. You know, most of the women in our company have a crush on Andrew. He's got quite the fan base, probably even more admirers than you, Mr. Bennet. Lucas's smile immediately vanished. Really, now more than me? His tone dropped. Emily Hall, are you saying you prefer guys like him? Boom. He narrowed his eyes teasingly. This topic seems to need further discussion. Why don't you explain it to me clearly? I couldn't help but laugh. Never date programmers, Lucas. They'll give you heart palpitations. Dinner passed in laughter and warmth. Every course was delicious, and every moment felt lighter than air. When dessert came, Mrs. Bennet asked Lucas to step outside and pick a few fresh lemons from the garden. I followed him. The early summer night was cool and soft. The lemon trees gave off a light citrusy fragrance that reminded me of the faint scent of his cologne. Lucas rolled up his sleeves, the white fabric creasing neatly around his elbows as he reached up to pluck a few lemons. His forearms were lean and strong, and something inside me stirred. Before I could stop myself, I spoke. Lucas, I said quietly, you know, I think I fell for you from the very first day we met. When you hugged me that morning in the sunlight, I think I already liked you then. I hesitated. But you, what did you see in me? Do you really just like my good luck? The garden lights flickered softly, glowing and dimming. Lucas froze mid-movement, then turned toward me with a faint smile. He walked over and wrapped me in his arms. Honestly, I couldn't tell you why, he murmured. But I've always believed that when you like someone, it has nothing to do with reason. You just do. He pulled back slightly, looking me straight in the eyes. And if I keep talking, I'll probably say something stupid, he added with a quiet laugh. But Emily, in my whole life, I only want one person by my side, and that's you. Only you. Stop overthinking everything, you silly girl, he whispered. Just let yourself be loved. That one line, it has nothing to do with anything, hit deeper than any declaration I'd ever heard. So I rose on my toes and kissed him first. When that sweet warmth spread through my chest, I realized something. Everything I'd ever had in my 27 years, every bit of luck, every blessing had been a gift from life itself. But Lucas Bennet, he was the one thing I'd fought for with my own hands. So just this once, for the first and last time in my life, I let myself be greedy because some things, some people are worth more than.